Let me set the scene for you. You're learning a new song and you got to play a solo over some really odd chord changes. Maybe they start in one key and sort of jump off the track and some odd chords are sprinkled in there. Does this describe you when that happens? You've got a bunch of memorized riffs and licks that seem to work most of the time, but somehow they're not working for this and you're laying eggs.
I thought I heard a sour note.
Or maybe what's going on is you decide to use your ear. I'll listen and I'll kind of figure out, just use my ear. And your ear's not helping you, you're still laying eggs.
You're in the wrong key.
Or you know some arpeggios, and so when these odd chords pop in there, you're trying to chase those chords. You're reacting, just not able to shoot something in there for each chord fast enough.
You're reacting.
Or maybe this last thing is you see other guitar players who are able to just breeze through changes like this with no problem at all, and you're thinking to yourself, are they just able to think that much faster than me?
Think fast.
And so the answer to that last question is absolutely not. They're not able to think faster than you. They've just boiled the progression down to the point to where maybe they only need 2 different scales and they've figured out when to shift from one scale to the other. This chord progression you're hearing in the background is a good example of that. And I'm going to show you how to break these things down and get to the point to where you never have to worry in that scenario again. So let's go. I have KeyWeaver open here at guitarcreative.com, and the reason is because it shows all of the chords that belong to any key. So you see that we're in the key of C major here. In our chord progression, you'll see that it starts with C, goes to A minor, goes to F, and goes to G. All of those chords belong to the key of C. They're built from the notes of the C major scale. And that means that you can just play the C major scale to improvise over all 4 of those chords. But we hit a snag when we get to measure 4 because that has an F minor and a G minor in it, and there is no F minor or G minor in the key of C.
It's not in there.
In fact, further down, you see there's an A flat and a B flat and some more G minors. What's up with that? Well, these are those kind of off chords that don't belong in the key that sometimes we just don't know what to do with. Well, I'm about to clear that up for you. You see, in the major scale, all of the 1, 4, and 5 chords are major, and all of the 2, 3, and 6 chords are minor. It doesn't matter what scale it is. If it's in G, the 2, 3, and 6 chords are minor. The 1, 4, and 5 are major. So what happens if I go to the E flat major scale? Notice that in the key of E flat, F minor, G minor, A flat, and B flat are 4 of the main chords in the key of E flat. So that's where our mystery chords came from.
Mystery solved.
So just like in the C major scale, you can use it to improvise over all the chords that come from the C major scale. Well, you can do the same thing for E flat. So fast forward to the end of this chord progression, you'll see there's an A flat and a G minor, and it repeats again. A flat, G minor, A flat, G minor. You might be fooled if you're reacting to chords. If you're just looking at a chord progression and you're going, oh, here's an A flat chord, and you're seeing it in isolation, you might be tempted to play an A flat major scale. But you'd be really wasting your time because that D flat note in that A flat major scale is going to sound terrible when you get to the G minor because it has a D in it, not a D flat. So look at these things in context. Look at the bigger picture. The E flat major scale contains both the G minor and the A flat major chords, and so you would use the E flat major scale to play over both of those chords at the end of this chord progression. We're shifting back and forth from C to E flat, and sometimes pretty quickly. So we need to find a smooth way to make that transition. Let's just simplify this and get into some of these really neat ways to shift between the two in your solos. We're looping bars 3 and 4. Measure 4 is where you see the F minor and the G minor chords shifting away from the key of C into the key of E flat. So we're going to focus on that shift. The first technique is to shift in the middle of a scale run. Let me show you what I'm talking about. technique is to capitalize on the common notes. In the C major scale and the E flat major scale, there are 4 notes that are common: C, F, G, and D. But you want to be careful about sustaining the F note over the C chord because it may not sound too good. Just use your ear. The third technique is to form some kind of a pattern where maybe you jump a string, that kind of thing, and do the same thing in both keys. Of course, the notes will be different. Let me show you what I'm talking about. And now that we have some patterns, the fourth thing you can do is add some color to a pattern that repeats in both keys by bending up 2 notes or sliding or hammer-ons and pull-offs, that kind of thing, where you would repeat the same phrasing, hammer-on, pull-off, slide, whatever, bend, in the other key as well. Let me show you what I mean. Now, the fifth thing you can do, and this sort of polishes it all off, in fact, it gives it polish, and that is to alter the rhythms of those patterns that you've added color to using bends and that kind of thing. Now, scales can get a bad rap. I mean, people say, oh, scales are boring, and that's true if all you do is run up and down the scales.
Practice your scales.
But scales do provide a framework, and once you have that framework where you know where all the notes are, then you can begin to weave in and out of that framework, and that's when your lines become more and more sophisticated. Right now, I'm going to use this hollow body flat wound string guitar to play in a little bit of a jazz style over the full progression. And I'm going to try to employ each of those techniques at least once. To be able to shift from the C major scale to the E flat major scale. So you got to know where all the notes for both scales are. And I'll admit that you can learn finger patterns and mindlessly play scale patterns and not know what notes you're playing. But it's way better to actually know the notes that you're playing. Now, you've seen KeyWeaver, but there's some other tools that can help you too. Here's ScaleMate, where you can load lots of different scales in every key. And hey, if you're wondering why all the colors, there's actually a neuroscience-based reason. Your brain recognizes color like 60,000 times faster than text. Color recognition happens in like 13 milliseconds, according to a study done by neuroscientists at MIT. So colors pop out at you like instantly. In fact, one of the terms you'll hear neuroscientists use is the pop-out effect. Want to find all the C notes? Just look for the blue color. The E note, just look for all the red ones. You can control the colors by going into the settings here, make sure Fretboard's selected, scroll down to the interval color key, and then to control which ones are on or off, just choose toggle colors on click. Then you can use these buttons to turn on or off any interval of the scale. And Arpeggio Flow and KeyWeaver both work the same way. If you haven't seen this video, you should check it out because I show you how to learn your fretboard lightning fast using techniques that are also based on neuroscience. Look, fretboard freedom is yours for the taking, and it's worth the time it takes.